Thank you for joining us this evening. And we are honored to have a special guest, Dr. Carly Ellman. She is a social worker, Swiss Army knife. That's my nickname for her right now. She's an educator. She's a researcher. She is a licensed clinician social worker. And most important, she is a sports social worker. So, Dr. Carly, thank you for joining us this evening. If you want to give yourself an introduction in your own special way, but most importantly, we just want to thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that introduction, the Swiss Army knife. I always kind of say I am a chameleon, but I like the Swiss Army knife.
I like chameleon a little bit better. It means you can blend in everywhere. Either or, you can take both terms. Either or nickname. Greatly appreciate it. So thank you for joining the show. And because you're Swiss Army knife, that means we have all the questions and all the topics to hit this evening. And hopefully we'll stay within the time frame. If not, I'll be happy because everybody enjoys talking, especially as a social worker. But when we talk about something we're passionate about, our craft and the things we love, we kind of forget about the clock sometimes. But we'll stay here and making sure that you get home and get done in a decent hour or so. Who knows? But gosh, where do we begin? Just going through your website, just doing some research about you. Something stood out to me a lot amongst all things. You have something we talk about healthier sideline environments as part of your area that you focus on. And I can imagine you have so much experience with that because you are the coach, your parent, athlete yourself. So you've been all around the sideline, behind the sideline, and probably on the field if you got mad at a referee, I can imagine. But thinking about all that, why is a healthier sideline environment important to the sports climate? Nobody really talks about that a lot, but here you are.
Yeah, it's a great question, Justin. And again, thank you so much, and Kobe, for having me. This is definitely something I'm passionate about, particularly now as a parent. I have 3 daughters. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 13-month-old. And they're into sports, right? Like, what do we do as parents? We put children in the things that we were in, whether they like it or not. And right now, my children like it, right? And being on the sideline has caused me to be sick to my stomach. That what I see is disgusting a lot of the time. We are, and I say we because I am the first to say in anything I write and anything, like, I am part of the problem. I am aware of it, which is one step, right? And I try to talk about it and I try to do the things that I talk about, but I am human, right? So we are human, and as parents, we love so deeply for our children and we want them to do so well. And sometimes we see them as an extension of us, right? Like, or filling the needs or the wants that we didn't get as a kid. And I think that sometimes we start watching the games and practices like we're watching professional sports. And that's not what we're doing. And so the healthy behavior, we need healthier behavior. We need some culture keepers on the sideline, as I like to call it, where we can support each other and just check in with each other. Because as you know, like, and I know, I had a whole day before I got here today, and I'm bringing that, right? And each of these parents are bringing that to the sideline too. And so besides the emotion of what's going on the field, whether our kid is playing or not, whether the call was against them, we take that so personally and lose sight of what's going on. And, I'm kind of talking in circles a little bit, but what a lot of the research says is it's a lot of monkey see, monkey do. So if my children see me yelling at the ref or yelling at another parent or talking badly about another player on the team, they're going to think that's okay. Whether I say, oh, no, you don't do that. You don't talk rude to a ref. You don't talk rude. But if I don't follow that with the same actions, it's monkey see, monkey do, right? Like, I yell at a ref, they're going to say they can yell at a ref. And so it's really hard because we're human as parents, and all we do is we love deeply. And I always try to come from this place of compassion, right? We're doing the best we can with what we have. None of us have been trained, 1, how to be a parent, 2, how to be a sport parent. That's why I want to be doing what I'm doing and, like, educating parents, helping you do this better, right? Because we all have the same goal. We want our kids to be enjoying. I hope we want our kids to be having fun, learning, making friends, learning how to be a team, how to be a leader, how had to sit on the bench. All of these things had to be an advocate for themselves, but we kind of get in the way.
Yeah, we do. You're right. The enthusiasm of it all, just like you tend to forget that, oh, you can't tell a child automatically, your student athlete, like, hey, don't do what I do, you know, or don't do as I say either in some spaces. And so I don't know where I was thinking when I saw that. I was like, okay, the sideline coach, is she meaning like, okay, how to lift everybody up in spirits on the sideline with the athletes and the coaches? But it's more like what we start to see as a problem nowadays. We've heard of stories where, you know, this, what I'm saying, we have some coaches and parents, have had a shootout at the game or get in a fight. And I know here in Tennessee just a few years ago, and I talked to one of our first guests about how refs are leaving the sport
Ugh.
because of the fact that why do I have to deal with all this abuse and I'm only getting paid $100 a game and I'm driving probably
$100
two or
a
three.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Just that.
I was watching a youth softball game, and
Mhm.
the ump is like a maybe 16-year-old girl, and she's being yelled at by parents. Like, that to me is that's one of the problems, right? Like,
Mhm.
they're U10. We're really missing the purpose of youth sport. And I gotta tell you, I love sport. Like, right before we got on this, I was watching my niece's basketball game. They're in New York. I'm in Pennsylvania. We get to stream it. I will watch sport anytime. But it's losing its luster when this stuff is happening.
Mhm.
We need refs. We need umps. And the way that we're treating them it could be the downfall. I mean,
Yeah.
it could.
It's funny because I've seen one state association where they started where, well, I'm sorry, not even state association, it's a school district who are actually allowing kids to intern to be referees and umpires and stuff like that. So they can like tag along in the shadow. I'm like, but if you're yelling and cussing at these kids, and they'll probably don't want to be whatever again in life. But probably don't even play the sport anymore. But it's amazing how when you're talking about this silent environment and making sure they're healthier, because we see that on the larger sports perspective as well. Like, I'm a big soccer fan. I love soccer or football, depending on where you're from and how
Yeah.
you enjoy the game. And we see over there in Europe often how we seen, I see bananas thrown at Mario Balotelli, during the middle of a game. And so we talk about not only just the sideline, we talk about the whole, arena where they're having to like stop the middle of the game and potentially um making the team actually forfeit the match because of the fact there's so much, racism and things that are going on. And so it is very disheartening to see this happen in this space. And to the point where we have to, hey, calm down. Because what you're doing is making an impact on your kid and how they may take the sport and be protective and active in it. And so,
And
gosh,
I
I mean,
apologize. Do you hear my children? I think they just got home. Is it bothering you?
yeah, it's okay. That's fine.
Okay,
The
I
kids are
can
going to do what
move.
kids do.
Okay, I can move if I need to. I didn't realize that you'd be able to hear. So sorry. They
It's
just got home
fine.
from soccer at 7:15.
Like it's the beautiful game, and so I'm pretty sure they're riled
Yep.
up and ready to go. Keep the party
Yep.
started. Speaking of soccer, the beautiful game. You mentioned that you're doing some research on some of the inequalities when it comes to um, women's equipment. I don't know if you can go deep into the research. I would have all the questions, but I know because it's research, you might be limited on what you can offer and provide. So, can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, I have been so lucky to partner with his name's Maxwell, and he, for his master's, decided to create a cleat for women.
Mm-hmm.
And he, then decided to like test it out with a colleague of mine and to do some research into how my colleague Colin is exercise science. So, they were talking more about like how it's impacting our bodies, right? Like, we're doing all of this research on ACL tears, which is like super, super important, and like overuse, all of that super important.
Mm-hmm.
But something that could easily fix things is equipment that is made for women
Mm-hmm.
and is like supporting where we need it to be supported. And specifically, the idea of making it equitable because equipment is expensive. So a lot of times, so he specifically targeted historical Black colleges and universities, and wanted to see how it impacted the individuals there due to how they received equipment. A lot of the time it was hand me downs, things that don't necessarily fit the athletes.
Mhm.
And so he we're working on more of like the longitudinal piece, but there was
Mhm.
some real significant findings in terms of women feeling better, feeling more comfortable. There was some percentage changes in terms of striking and actual play. I came to them and I said, I'm a sports social worker, and this like really hits me in terms of the ideas of, equality and equal access, and, the idea that, we are missing such a large part of the population that could be playing sport because of the pay to play model right
Mhm.
now, like just that in and of itself. Now, if you can afford it, how do you keep up with the equipment, right? And so to me, that's such systems barriers and systems problems. So I kind of bring that lens to the research and like where we can make changes in terms of breaking some of those barriers, whereas they're making coming kind of from the equipment and I'm coming kind of from the social systems.
Wow, that's important work. So I was listening to a podcast a while ago, and they were mentioning how ACL tears are one of the most common injuries amongst women athletes. I didn't know that at all. So I was like, wow, okay, because we're starting to see a lot more injuries to occur. Starting to see more Achilles tendons popping out of nowhere, left and right. And we talk about and that's the big thing amongst male athletes. Is, you see it happen all the time. And so just thinking about from that perspective that the inequity is happening because of the hand-me-downs. You would think you're going to college and you're going to any school, you should get some of the best of the best because you are a college athlete. But you're starting to see that's not the case because of what's happening. So I mean, I'm assuming there's probably more injuries happening at these schools that are not funded as much than those who are like your big D1 schools who have contracts with Nike. And
Mhm.
so how do we prevent that? And so
Right.
I
I
wonder.
mean,
So what do
even
you think? No, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, even the contracts with different, well-known organizations, we still need to make sure that this equipment is made for women and women's bodies
Hmm.
and like women's development. I work a lot in terms of youth sport, and what I've kind of really been trying to like talk about is we gotta like structure what we're doing based on where youth are developmentally, right?
Hmm.
Like we can't we shouldn't have an A and a B team at U8. Like we shouldn't that is a problem, right? Like developmentally they're not hitting puberty until like 12 or 13, right? And so it has to impact the way that we're making decisions in terms of sport, but also in terms of equipment, right? Like our bodies are changing. And so, we just have to like it's just another way of really showing that we are supporting women's sport, right? Like I love the idea that soccer is supporting women who are having children, right? And they're really trying to push that then, the national level and the professional level, and that's like so huge. That's like some workplaces, like regular workplaces still don't do that. But I think it also needs to come with all types of equipment, like sports bras, right? Like people have
Hmm.
like such different types of bodies, and I just think we have to do a better job of supporting the overall woman mentally, physically, emotionally, and with equipment.
Yeah, because equipment is expensive. It is ridiculous, and especially when you're talking and you maybe think about when we talk about youth athletes and you're at these ages where, at 10, you could be one height, and then by the time you're 13, you just shot up 2 or 3 inches, or just within the same year. And so I know, like, for some families, it's difficult to buy another pair of cleats. It's very
There
challenging.
was an there was an article this morning in the Washington Post about
Mhm,
someone talking about youth sport and the pay that they were all the money they were spending, and it was like 3,000, it was like a 10-year-old, $3,000 just for like the season, right? The
mhm.
$500 bat. Like a 10-year-old needs a $500 bat. Like they don't, right? But this goes back to what we're like as parents, we come from this place of fear, right? And this place of like, what if I miss this opportunity? Like, what if my kid,
Mhm.
I'm not doing this, right? So I'm gonna do the $500 bat. And then it's like, okay, I'm doing the $500 bat, but now we can't feed the kids. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's happening everywhere, right? Like, and I guess this is the thing that like keeps coming up is like I'm loving like I'm so happy that you had me. Like I could talk about this forever. And I do. I talk about it with a lot of people and
Mhm.
everyone's like, "Yes, this is a problem. This is a problem." And it's like, "Okay, well what are we going to do about it?" Like we have to
Yeah.
be the change, you know? We have to, and that's where I always say that I'm in turmoil, right? Because
Mm.
I want there to be a change, but I have that fear, right? Like if I don't, if I don't sign my kid up, what if? So I just feel like again, there has to be a system shift where we're just doing better all around when it comes to sport.
I have an idea, but I would love to know, like, where do we begin? Because I feel like as United States, we're one of the few, industrialized nations where sports in itself, when it comes to like the youth ranks, is like you say, it is a cash cow. You have some other countries where they have the development programs, like they take you in up under their wing and they just, that's a bad word to use, they make sure they rise you up in the ranks to make sure that you are, by the time you get 13, 14, you can go and play this game. But for us, it is such a cash cow when you have, I think, what was it? I was reading another article where I think it was soccer, and it was mentioning how there's like 2 or 3 governing body agencies that oversees soccer development, and it's like there's usually no type of correlation about the work that they do and the making sure that the kid is going through a system where they can participate in the sport, or they're gonna pay an arm and a leg. Then, like I got my brother, he has a son that plays hockey, and the
Ugh.
kid's only 7 years old, and he's shooting up like, and he was like, "What am I doing here?" Like he's like, he spent so much money on the game, like he can't believe it, and he's a growing kid. The skates are not cheaper by the month.
Right.
So like,
And there's so many other aspects to it too. I'm sorry I cut you off, but like
no, no, no.
it's doing like it's what it's doing to families. Right? So I have 2 daughters, both playing sports, and I mean, there's a few weekends where I don't see my husband because one's going here, one's
Mhm,
going there. There's a few weekends where the siblings don't see each other, right? There's nights when we're not having dinner together, a lot of nights. So it's like there's just like such a ripple effect and you said like where do you start and so my
mhm,
sport was field hockey. I also played soccer, but I played field hockey in college and I love field hockey. Like there's something about it that I love. And, we are not doing well as a country. We are bringing in so many international players and they're taking a lot of our spots at these college levels, right? And so I was like so
mhm,
interested in this and I was just like looking into it and the way hockey is in like the Netherlands and where it's like really really big, it's like it's a family event, right? So on the weekends, their like country clubs are field hockey, right? So you're playing field hockey with your family from this age, and so it's a family event. Everyone's playing together. And here it's like, we do, everything's pay. You have to pay a lot of money
uh,
and it's all age based and it's all wrong, it seems like, right? Like we're just not doing well. And I hate that, like
mhm,
I was on a thread of like the all Americans for field hockey. And I think like 7 of them were international players. And someone was like, is that fair that like all Americans are international players? And it's like, yeah, they're the best people playing. We have to
mhm.
do something if we want more Americans up there. So again, I think it goes back to like, it has to be a whole culture and system shift. There's a few really, really good books. Take Back the Game and God, I have it right here. And How College Athletics Are Hurting Girls Sports. And it's by Rick Eckstein. And he talks about like it has to be removed from the education system. Like it
Mm,
can't come from the academic, like it can't be tied to academics because it's not in other
mhm.
countries. So yeah, and now with NIL, I doubt that's gonna happen, but
Like
that's my
I
thought
remember I was in
process.
college, I had a classmate, we was taking a PE course, and he was from overseas, and he was like, "I went to a tennis high school." I was like, "A tennis high school?" And he was like, "Yeah, like they play we play tennis majority of the time, They might have a little bit of education, but it was like mainly just tennis. And so that's why he was able to perform as well. And we had a really good tennis team for the D2 school. I'm like a tennis high school. So to hear somebody say that it needs to be separated from school, that is bringing like it's a full circle moment there hearing that. And I wonder, like, so if you could wave a magic wand, like, I don't know, like, where do we begin? So as far as making sure that we are doing right by youth sports.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think um would be really helpful and that like I would really I'm trying to do around here in Pennsylvania and is like to have all of the soccer clubs be on the same page.
Mhm.
So all parents have to take this course and get this certificate. All they need to follow like these, we're charging this amount of money and we're giving this amount of scholarship and like, they have to, if a parent does this, they're kicked out of the club and you can't take them, right? Like, it has to be
Mm.
everyone has to be on the same page. Because right now, it's like I could get kicked out of a club, which, doesn't really happen, even
Mhm.
though, like, you may, like, treat a coach badly or a ref badly because it's about money. And then I could go to the next club and be on that club, and they wouldn't know that I did anything, and they'll take me because they want the money. So I really think there has to be a common like consensus and rule that like this is what we're going to do. And I read another book about how like we don't have any over we don't have any governing body of youth sports, right? It's
Mm-mm.
everyone's doing whatever they want for themselves. Like that would be a step. Let's have a governing body, whether it's nationally or per state. Like I didn't realize until I really dug into this that like it's up to states whether they mandate clearances and background checks, right? Like I just assumed that like, oh, my kid's going to play field hockey when I had to get a background check to coach, like everyone's getting a background check. Not the case. It's up to the state and up to the club. That was like
Wow.
scary for me to find
Mhm.
out. Like we need a council to like regulate some of this.
Ooh, you said the R word. I don't think they're gonna like that. Regulation.
Oh no. I know. Yeah, they are not
But
gonna like
it's
that.
so needed because you're actually protecting so many people. Like you're protecting the athlete, you're protecting the culture, you're protecting the sport within itself. Because, we always talk about we know that how, most kids they usually leave the game at the age of 13, and there's many reasons for that. And they're just not having fun. They're just not enjoying the sport itself. And there are factors that have an impact on that, where you're talking about, hey, okay, well, my coaches treat me this way, or, the parents aren't involved. But I don't know. It just blows my mind that there is nobody doing well. I mean, it's based upon city and the club is determined that that person needs a background check for a
I know.
coach. Like,
Especially when these stories, like, keep coming out, right? Like,
yeah.
with the US gymnastics and just everything, and, the rate of suicide in collegiate athletes. Like, not
Hmm.
that I'm saying it has to do with that. I'm just saying, like, obviously, there needs to be more support and more research and more, rules to
Yeah.
keep people safe, right? Like, remember, I always start parent presentations like saying, like, why did you put your kid in sport, right? Why did you
Hmm.
play sport? And it's always like to have fun, to make them social, right? Like, is that what's happening? Are they having fun? Are you having fun? Does everyone feel safe? I
Hmm.
don't know if people are really being honest when they answer that question.
Well, for some people, it's the ticket out. It's a way out of the game. I remember years ago reading in I think it was a magazine. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was ESPN magazine, and there was a lab that was actually taking DNA samples from like kids. Parents are paying for it. They're taking the DNA samples. They're trying to figure out, based upon their DNA structure, what sport they will be good at participating in. And so the parents were investing in that and then putting that child in that sport. It's like, but you don't really know if the kid really loves the game or not. I mean, yeah, they have the genetic makeup for it, but what about the fun? What about the skill development and the social aspect of the sport that they may or may not get out of it? And so you're right.
Yeah,
I
and
feel like we're pushing kids away.
I think you make a really good point. Like we forget that this is for kids and they have no say. basically. We are
Mhm.
making the decisions. And so it's, you really have to, like, for me, I say this in like a lot of different things, right? Like, what is my motive here, right? If I'm putting my daughter in field hockey so I can be around field hockey, that's not a reason to put her in field hockey, right?
Mhm.
Like, if there's something about me in it, that's not the reason. And I don't think people are actually want to ask themselves that question, right? I want to talk about this. I want to research it. I want to,
Mhm.
and some people are like, who's going to want to listen to this? Who wants to be told that they're not doing things right and they should be like, what club is going to want you to talk about that, they shouldn't stay at your club if blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we all should
Mhm.
be more holistic and human, right? Like we should all be
Yeah.
human.
We tend to forget that sometimes. I would say that but I think there's a general consensus that um, when it comes to being an athlete, you tend to forget sometimes they are human beings first. I think the ASWIS posted a picture today with Simone Biles and her quote. It specifically said that, we are a human at the end. I say it's a human at the beginning and the end. Overall, you're just a human being, but we tend to forget that, okay, because they're athletes, we put them on a pedestal. I mean, yeah, they're superior to certain things, but however, they are a human being. So and we can't forget that because the moment we do, and the moment the athlete forgets that, then they find themselves to be pulled away from the game. So, and I don't have the data to back that, but I just have, from a human standpoint, I just feel like that's what happens at times. We could talk about youth sport. I know youth
Yeah.
sports is something that is impacted so many lives because so many people involved in it, and so many people, like you said, I mean, they are literally child, the cleats or a meal. So many
Hmm.
sacrifices are being made. Has there been any other studies that you committed to when it comes to youth sports that you've already completed, or things that you are interested in reaching
So
out to?
yeah, so I'm really right now I'm working with someone in terms of talking about like emotional regulation of parents on the sidelines
Mhm.
because there's so many studies out there. Like there's this one study that said like watching a hockey game was the equivalent of like aerobic exercise for the parents. Like that's what it does to
Wow.
us. I know. So I'm like really interested in terms of like how parents are regulating their emotions on the sidelines. If they're regulating their emotions, like maybe we can help them regulate their emotions.
Mhm.
So I haven't quite completed any studies, but I'm in the
Mhm.
process of like starting a few and working on the social determinants of health piece there. So but I will keep you posted because I don't think I'm stopping. It's very
You should.
interesting. Yeah, it's my chameleon problem. I was saying this to someone this morning, right? Like I listened to a podcast and I'm like, "Ooh, I need to read that and I need to talk to that person." And so I do that and then I'm like, "Ooh, I need to do that. I need to do that." And there's just so much out there. And again, like this is why I love being a social worker. Like, and this is what I
Mhm.
tell all my students, like we can do anything. Like anything. And like I wanted to be a sports psychologist and I chose between, getting a master's in sports psychology and getting a master's in social work. And just like many things in my life, it was a financial choice. And I'm
Mhm.
so happy I did. And here I am getting to work with sport. Like I never thought that was possible. And now I realize that we can work with any population. Because if you go back to our definition, right? Like we are supposed to support vulnerable populations. Who isn't a vulnerable population?
Okay, there we go. But yeah, to me, you're right. Social workers can do anything. One thing I said as being a social worker, and the reason why I got my daughter's social worker is I was like, I don't want anybody to tell me I can't do something because I can do it all now. All research and everything. And so that is a pivotal point there. But is we'll probably talk a little more on the sideline because I actually have one of the things I want to work on is to actually provide support to like booster clubs and athletic clubs because they are the ones more than likely their kids are on the team and they're showing up in all the spaces. And like, how do we make sure, I guess, in what you're saying, some of that sideline culture and environment is healthy. But I think it definitely starts with those who are pretty much very active, behind the scenes because they're doing all the inner working, selling the hot dogs and doing all the things during the middle of a
Mm,
game. I'm pretty sure they're doing a lot of the work by being present in that sport. Um,
yeah.
along the way. And so we could talk about that in another area, maybe some opportunities to work with and pair together
Yeah,
in that space.
love it.
But it's very important. And so there's another. I mean, we haven't talked about this area just yet, but I know you said that you're passionate about a lot of things. And one thing you mentioned that as being a D1 athlete, you're very passionate about prevention and intervention when it comes towards alcoholism and eating disorders. And in my mind, and learning about this field, especially as a college student, you probably think of those things. It's like, oh, that's just them being a college student, or they do a little drinking. I mean, that's what college students do. Or if you're an athlete, oh, they're just trying to, lose a little weight to be able to perform. But a lot of people may not understand, like, this is a visible crisis for some people. And so when we think about this area of this work, what is it that we can share? What are the things that we need to do as social workers or even coaches? What are the things that people need to pay attention to when we talk about these two disorders and experiences that people are dealing with?
Yeah, so certainly areas that I'm passionate about. I myself am in recovery of alcoholism and an eating disorder, and I say that so that I can help someone else. And what you said, Justin, is the key. Like, how do we talk about it? The problem is that we don't talk about it, and I don't think it's like necessarily intentional, but I think that if we start with the eating disorder part, like some of the parts of the disorder, such as like discipline and control and sacrifice, are strengths of being an athlete. Those are seen as
Hmm.
strengths as being an athlete, and they also feed into the eating disorder. Really important things is recognizing that and talking about it, right? And not putting that extra pressure on to try to have this perfect body. A lot of people with eating disorders feel completely out of control, right? So imagine an athlete who hasn't had to make any decisions. It's all been decided for them by a coach or by a parent. And it's like, I have no control over this. Sometimes that happens. And again, I do not think it's a conscious decision. It's a disease. I fully believe that. But this is some of the stuff that happens. And for me, mine started, and like a lot of people, after sport, right? So I held so together. My sports kept, like, field hockey was my life. Like, it kept me going. And then when it ended, I was lost. I had no coping skills. I didn't know what to do. I hadn't really drank much in high school and college, but when I did, I usually blacked out. So it could have been a sign. But so the other thing that's important is to have coping skills, to have a life beyond sport, starting from a really young age, to have other things that you identify with. So because, we're not always going to be able to do it, right? Like, if you may be able to go shoot hoops and kick the soccer ball, and that's great, but you also need some other things. And again, you now have more athletes coming out talking about alcoholism and eating disorders, and really trying to support and you know really try to elevate the conversation, because part of those diseases are being secretive and hiding them and being ashamed, right? So what we need to
Hmm.
do is we need to talk about it more. And I'm part of a really great organization. It's called Soul Pause. And what we do is we channel through animal assisted therapy, supporting emotional regulation of athletes and individuals with eating disorders. So it's a way to kind of, because all of these pieces kind of go back to emotional regulation. And so it's like being around an animal and petting the animal and being able to calm yourself. So we're going into different treatment centers and trying to do some of these groups, and hoping to support as many populations as possible, but we're targeting eating disorders and alcoholism.
Oh, wow, that's amazing work. Wow, so Paul. And like I said, thank you for sharing your story. It's just amazing because some people, when we talk about those two things, like you said, people are one of the things is hiding it, and people are good at doing it at times until maybe a little bit later on, like, oh, I didn't know the problem, and then he's like, yeah, I was dealing with this maybe 5, 6 years ago, 5, 6 years now, and people never noticed. And so when you say that we should have, conversations, is it more like what type of conversations need to be had? Is it more like informative to, like, making people know about the disorders, or is it more like creating a space where people feel comfortable to talk about it if they're dealing with it?
I mean, I think it's both. I really do. I think one, you need to be able to name it and identify it and, and recognize it, right? So we need to talk about what that looks like. We need to talk about what like healthy eating and how we need to like, food is fuel and all of this stuff and we need to, discuss like what that doesn't look like, right? And then we need to say, hey, if you're noticing some of this or you're feeling some of this, like this is a safe space to talk about it. I think, especially in sport, like you're so afraid that if you talk about it, you're going to be benched or you're going to be redshirted or you're going to be, you're going to be taken off the team or whatever. And so you push through and you push through and you're only hurting yourself. I mean, you're digging deeper and you're alone. And I do have to like say that there are a lot of teams now that are having or schools that have a athletic specific social worker or psychologist to work with the athletes. I don't think one is enough for all the teams, but hey, it's a step forward. So hopefully that's like a safe space because that person is kind of like in the space, right? Like, oh gosh, there's like such a stigma of going to the counseling center and all
Mhm.
of this, right? And even though I think we've come very far, like when I have these conversations, I'm like, maybe we haven't come as far and we will keep pushing, and I will keep saying that athletes are a vulnerable population and we need to support each other. From the young ages all the way, to the older ages as well.
Well seasoned. We're gonna say older, well seasoned.
Well seasoned.
All
I
right,
know.
so we're gonna hop into Kobe's corner. She has three hot questions. She is our resident student and co-host here, and we would love to hear what she has to bring to the table through her Kobe's corner three.
Personal experience as an athlete, really, and then becoming a parent of an athlete and feeling that as I was what I think an educated, self aware person. I didn't like the way I was behaving on the sideline and the actions that I was taking. And I was like, something needs to change here, so yeah, my personal experience. And I was talking to someone the other day and they said that's called me search. And I loved it, right? So it's not research, like it's me search. Like I'm searching me and it's like, oh, that's something that needs to be worked on, right? And I'm not the only one. So yeah.
And that's self-awareness too.
Yeah. Yeah, me search. All right. Yeah, that's such a great word. A tough one. And I kind of put it in the same boat as how I feel about the word self care. We kind of throw it around a lot, and we need to understand what each person's definition is. So I see it as not giving up on yourself. I see it as whatever the person's goals are to help them get to those goals. It's not necessarily pushing through, right? It may be saying no. It may be quitting, right? Like I love Glennon Doyle and she has this whole podcast about like how quitting is good. So again, I think that resilience is supporting the person in their goals, not mine, not someone else's, and just being there as their bumpers on their bowling lane. Okay, so I it's not very different, especially because when I'm working with athletes, they may be the identified patient or client, but I'm working with families and parents as well, right? So, I do a lot of work together, um, but when I'm working with parents, I'm trying to be their mirror. I'm trying to allow them to have a safe space to not feel that they are the only people going through this. That's why I do like group therapy. I know everyone kind of has their own feelings on it, but the one great thing is that you don't feel like you're alone. And that's what these different diseases, they tell us, like, "You're different, like, don't get help," and right? And so, like, even as a parent trying to support their athlete, right, they need to know, like, you're not the only one going through this, right? So I will encourage, like, a group process, but, again, it's a lot of the same work. Thank you.
Those are great questions. And Dr. Carr, I want to go back a little bit because you talked about your me search and you realized that you were part of the problem. Do you know exactly what game or what moment it was when you was like, okay, I need to sit down somewhere and need to work on me?
Well, I have 2 questions for you. Which one and how much time do you have? Gosh, I guess, like, two 2 things come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
One, my daughter was playing in a Halloween soccer tournament. She had just turned 8, and we got her ears pierced, and everyone's all dressed up in their costumes, and she played the first game, and everything was fine, and then we played the second game, and the ref told her she had to take her earrings out, and, the coach kinda looks at me, and she had just gotten them out, so she just
Mm-hmm.
gotten them, so they can't come out. And so, I kinda go over, and he's like, "She's gotta take the earrings out." I'm like, "Why can't she tape them?" Meanwhile, like, there's kids wearing tutus and hats and, like, all of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're concerned about these earrings. D I kind of lost it a little bit on the ref. This was not good behavior. This was when I
Mm-hmm.
realized, like, I need help, and, but I was coming from a place of, like, how can you do this to my daughter? She's just trying to play soccer, like, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't come out that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up leaving because then I was going to coach field hockey, and I cried for an hour and a half to this
Mm.
field hockey because I felt like that was such an icky feeling. Like, one, I don't like to behave like that, and talk about monkey see, monkey do, right? Like, that was just terrible for my daughter to see, and so that was really a turning point for me in terms of, like, okay, let's work on this. And then through me working on it, I really started to step back and watch what was around me. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Ooh, I'm not the only one." So yeah, that to me, that was not a very proud moment. And that's kind of where my me search started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you found out what it was, you realized something, and you did something with it. And we're really hoping forward to seeing more positive outcomes with your me search because it's needed. I mean, the as we talk about the ecosystem, the parents, coaches, more like most importantly, the parents or your caregiver are the ones that really can have an impact on how you play, how you perform, and if you love the game or not. And so they are the intrinsic value to that sport. And so hopefully that we can continue to create and have an understanding that, hey, my actions and my activities has a very important role on this child, the student's athlete outcome, honestly. All right. A lot of great things happening. And I know I called you Swiss Army knife and you're a chameleon of sports social work. And so you may have about 40 different responses for this one. The show is called And Then We Win. And we love talking about all the things that are important before we consider the concept or even thinking about winning or even taking a pitch or even hitting the field. And so what do you feel like out of all the things is the one of the key areas that's very important to address and handle before we even think about winning?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the question I ask myself all the time is, like, what is my motive?
Mm.
Why am I doing this? And if it's a positive reason, let's go. Let's do it. And if it's because I need to do it for my parents, or I need to do it for this, or I need to and it's not positive, maybe it's not the right thing for me. So it's really, yeah, it really does come down to, like, what's motivating me. Why am I saying yes to this, or why am I saying no to this? And that has to do with, really checking in with ourselves. And that's the Maslow's self-actualization. I can't even believe I'm quoting that right now because my teachers would be very proud of me. But, like, that's the goal, right? Is to recognize
Hmm.
that in and of it in ourselves. And that's so hard. It's so hard. It's so much easier just to be like, oh, I'm doing it because I just want to make this person happy. And, I think it's going to be this. And But like, what's my motive?
That's important. The motive. It's the gasoline to your car. If we're consider ourselves a car. I consider myself an old Cadillac. It takes me a little while to warm up in the morning. But yeah, that's the things that keeps us going and keep things. And so I love your answer. So thank you, Dr. Carla, for sharing your time on this great day. We look forward to seeing many more of your work. If there's any way that Kobe and I can support you, please feel free to reach out. And we thank you for joining this episode of Then We Win.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Carly Talks. Yeah, I try to, and I've been writing a Substack too every week
I've been reading
about,
some of those. Those are great.
yeah, about like, the craziness every week, like what happened. So yeah, just, the more I love connecting with people. So if anyone wants to connect, please.
Sure, we'll make sure you post your socials everywhere on the internet when we post the show. So thank you, Dr. Carly.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to And Then We Win. My name is Dr. Justin Singleton, and I'm a sports social worker. I love what I do. And if you're interested in learning how I can best support your athlete, your parent group, or even the team, please feel free to reach out to me at info@justsinglevision.com. That is info@justsinglevision. Feel free to contact me for a free 30-minute consultation so we can figure out how we can best support the mind, vision, and action of your athletes. Thank you and take care.